Metromont got its start back in 1925. My grandfather was a bridge builder and decided to get in the concrete business. Over the years, the culture of Metromont has stayed the same. One of resiliency, perseverance, honor, passion for what you're doing. And over the years, we've had a good many innovative changes within the industry, trying to find ways to be less labor intensive, to make it a better place to work for everyone.
In a world where safety is paramount, and every structure standing is a testament to security and life safety systems, there's one name that American businesses trust: VSC. Founded in 1958, we built our legacy on a handshake, the bedrock of American values. We are more than just a company. We are your partners in protection. For decades, we've stood for quality craftsmanship and the highest standard of customer service to become the one-stop provider for premier, full-spectrum fire protection. Because when it comes to protecting what matters most, there's only one name to trust: VSC. VSC Fire and Security, your world protected.
Captech fused technology with sport to reimagine how the best golfers in the world compete and drive a new league from concept to prime time. We take on complex challenges and build tailored solutions across industries to help organizations define and deliver what's next. Captech. Let's do next together.
please welcome Markel Group CEO Tom Gayner to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Gayner. I have the privilege of serving as your CEO, and I'm the one who's lucky enough to welcome you to the 2025 Markel Group Annual Meeting, or as we affectionately call it, the Reunion. The Markel Group is a company built for and all about people. As such, let's start with first things first. Let's name some of the people who made this day possible. I apologize in advance for not being able to name everyone involved. There are so many who participated in the preparation and execution of this day. In fact, when I asked my business partner, Cynthia Fetterman, for a list, she came back with a list. The list had 80 names. Since I can't read out all 80, please let me share just a few. But please know how much I appreciate all of those who contributed. If you would, please hold your applause until I get to the end of this section. I'll start out with my partner, Tyler Brown. In addition to his day jobs of assisting me in managing our investment portfolio and running our investor relations activities, Tyler deserves singular credit for taking this meeting to the next level. He's creative, full of energy, and dogged in chasing down the details, ideas, speakers, website logistics, vendors, venues, and countless pieces of what goes into this day. He does all of this at the same time he does his day jobs, and he does all of it with a genuine smile on his face. Thank you, Tyler. I also want to thank Cynthia Green. Cynthia oversees all of the myriad events that our insurance operations do during a calendar year. She's a complete pro at running events, and I am grateful for her skills and her commitment to making all of this happen. Thank you, Cynthia. I also want to specifically thank Matt Johnson, Gretchen Nurnberger, Sarah Westfall, Caroline Paul, Christina Mattice, Brandon Ancaro, Stephanie Creekmore, Olivia Wilkie, our student intern who works on this event as a project, and my ever faithful and dedicated partner, Cynthia Fetterman. Would all of you that I named, as well as those of you I couldn't name, like the Reunion Rangers and others, please stand and allow us to thank you for your work. Thank you for standing. You can either sit down or you can remain standing. I can't tell, it's dark. So again, thank you so much. As a point of information, none of us were the ones who came up with the name, the Reunion, which is how we describe the annual meeting. We just heard the phrase tumbling from your lips with increasing frequency over the last few years. As we consistently try to do, we do our best to listen and learn from others. And hence the Reunion ended up as the bottom-up, crowdsourced phrase to describe our annual meeting. So thanks for the idea. With that, let me turn to the business portion of the meeting. First, let me state that we are indeed glad to be back with you and celebrating another year together. At this time last year, we were together and celebrating record financial results for revenues, operating income, and other metrics. Our CFO, Brian Costanzo, will be on stage to answer any questions about our finances in a few minutes. 1 year ago this day, Markel Group shares stood at about $1,633 per share. As we gather here today, we're again celebrating a record year for revenues, operating income, and other financial metrics. As of yesterday, Markel shares stood at about $1,898. A year of progress like we enjoyed in 2024 is worth noting and celebrating. Thank you for being our partners for that trip around the sun. By the way, we're long-term at Markel, and we often talk about things in 5-year time periods. 5 years ago, at the time of the annual meeting, Markel Group shares stood at about $830 per share. The The price was depressed due to the uncertainty surrounding the early days of COVID. We're glad to be able to report meaningful financial progress since that time. Now, we think it's always important to remain humble. We made some mistakes along the way, and we learned many lessons. Despite the mistakes and the tuition cost of those lessons, I'm proud of the returns we've earned for you over many years, and I look forward to many more years of relentlessly compounding your capital. We hope our comments and answers to your questions today help provide you with confidence that we will do so. Here's the agenda. First, our chairman, Steve Markel, will conduct the formal measures called for in the proxy statement of the annual meeting. Following Steve, Matt Johnson will present our Markel Style Awards to associates who have been selected by their peers to receive and earn our highest reward. Following the Style Awards, I'll come back up and introduce a short video from our recent investor presentation in Omaha. Following the video, your senior management team of our COO, Mike Heaton, our CEO of Insurance, Simon Wilson, our president of Markel Ventures, Andrew Crowley, and our CFO, Brian Costanzo, will join me on the stage to answer your questions. After your questions, we'll invite you to join us for some hospitality of food and drink. With that, I'd like to invite Steve up to conduct the business. Oh, hold on. Before I, up. Before, see, he usually says stuff like that to me, so a little turnabout there. Before I turn over the podium to Steve, I'd like to hand him one more thing. Today, I would like to present Steve with a new Markel pin. We wear Markel pins around here as a symbol of our pride and joy at being part of your company. At every 5-year anniversary, we award a new pin with a new diamond added to acknowledge another 5 years of service to the company. Today, well, I guess I'll do it wrapped. Today it's my pleasure to present Steve with his 50-year pin. Steve, you were one of the original masterminds who put this place together. You designed our commitment, to quote you from 1986, to diversification and specialization to earn excellent financial results. I hope you are enjoying seeing how that continues to play out every day. We could not have done it without the direction you gave us, and I am pleased to present you with this pin as a small token of your role in the creation and growth of the Markel Group. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom. It's been a very, very exciting and rewarding 50-year journey with Markel. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Steve Markel, Chairman of the Board of the Markel Group, and I welcome you to the company's 2025 Annual Meeting of Shareholders, and today I'll be serving as your chairman. Representatives from KPMG are present and will be available to respond to any questions you might have during the question and answer session which will follow. I now call the Annual Meeting of Shareholders to order. The polls are now open for voting. If anyone would like to vote in person, please immediately see the Inspector of Elections, Mr. David Dixon, with the CT Hamburg Group, and I believe he is located near the rear entrance where you entered the building today. If you've already voted by proxy, it's not necessary for you to do anything else to have your shares voted today. The notice of Annual Meeting of Shareholders was distributed to all of our shareholders of record March 13, 2025. A quorum is present for the purposes of conducting the meeting today. Pursuant to the company's bylaws, the only matters to officially and properly come before the meeting of shareholders today were set forth in that notice and proxy statement. The first is a proposal on the agenda for the election of directors. The director nominees today are Mark Beska, Larry Cunningham, Tom Gayner, Greta Harris, Morgan Housel, Diane Leopold, Steve Markel, John Michael, Michael O'Reilly, and Lynn Puckett. The board has recommended a vote for each of these nominees. Proposal number 2 gives our shareholders the opportunity to approve on an advisory basis the executive compensation. Proposal number 3 concerns the ratification and selection of KPMG by the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors as the company's independent public accounting firm for the year ending December 31, 2025. Your board has recommended a vote for proposals 2 and 3. Proposal number 4 is a shareholder proposal for a report on the company's greenhouse gas emissions. Giovanni Eichner, representing Green Century Capital Management, will present this proposal. Ms. Eichner, please proceed, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, and thank you. My name is Giovanna Eichner. On behalf of Green Century Capital Management, I'm presenting the shareholder proposal requesting that Markel disclose the greenhouse gas emissions from its underwriting, insuring, and investment activities that account for a major source of its total greenhouse gas footprint. Climate change poses significant financial risk to the insurance industry. In 2024, insured losses reached $144 billion, 54% above the 21st century average. As climate-related hazards become more severe and unpredictable, insurers will be less able to price volatile climate risk and maintain profitability. Markel recognizes the risks climate change poses to its business and has noted that severe weather events are increasing and continue to be a significant source of loss activity. Nevertheless, Markel considerably lags peers that have disclosed Scope 1 and 2 emissions and are now disclosing emissions associated with their investment and insuring activities as well. The company also does not release a sustainability report, falling behind 93% of Russell 1000 index companies that published one in 2023. Markel's lack of disclosure leaves investors in the dark about how the company is contributing and responding to the climate risk its emissions enable. Markel is also exposed to competitive risk. Following an intense hurricane and wildfire season in the U.S., media and government officials are scrutinizing insurance companies for their role in supporting fossil fuel projects. Other major insurers, including Travelers, AIG, Swiss Re, and Aviva, have begun disclosing emissions associated with their underwriting, investing, and insuring activities. Lagging peers in emissions disclosures while professing that Markel supports the insurance industry's push for carbon neutrality furthers the company's exposure to reputational risk as well. In its opposition statement, the board states that climate and sustainability strategy, policies, and programs should be addressed at the operating company level, with oversight by the board. However, Markel Group's operating insurance companies lack public information about sustainability risk or strategies, and the extent of the board's oversight responsibilities is unclear. Implementing the proposal would provide investors with a better understanding of Markel's exposure to the physical and transition risks inherent in fossil fuel expansion, as well as mitigate the competitive and reputational risks of failing to disclose greenhouse gas emissions from Markel's underwriting, insuring, and investing activities. We therefore urge a for vote on this proposal. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Eichner. For reasons that we stated in our proxy statement, the board has considered this proposal and recommendation, and it is our recommendation that our shareholders vote against proposal number 4. Proposal number 5 is a shareholder proposal for a simple majority vote. Ms. Renee Denise Boyd, representing John Shevenden, will present this proposal. Ms. Boyd, would you proceed?
Yes. Hello. I'm presenting proposal 5 for the simple majority vote sponsored by John Shevenden. Shareholders request that the Board of Directors take the necessary steps so that each voting requirement in the charter and bylaws that calls for greater than simple majority vote be replaced by a requirement for a majority of the votes cast for and against proposals voted on by shareholders, or a simple majority. Shareholders are willing to pay a premium for shares of companies that have excellent corporate governance. The supermajority voting requirements of Markel Group have been found to be one of 6 entrenching mechanisms that are negatively related to company performance, according to What Matters in Corporate Governance by Lucian Bebchuk of the Harvard Law School. Supermajority requirements can be used to block proposals supported by the vast majority of shareholders. This proposal topic won from 74% to 88% support at Weyerhaeuser, Alcoa, Waste Management, Goldman Sachs, First Energy, and Macy's. These votes would have been higher than 74% to 88% if more shareholders had access to independent proxy voting advice. This proposal topic received 98% support at the 2023 annual meetings of American Airlines and the Carlyle Group. This proposal topic also received 98% support at Domino's Pizza, FMC Corporation, ConocoPhillips, Masco Corporation, and Power Integrations in 2024. The overwhelming shareholder support for this proposal topic at hundreds of major companies raises the question of why Markel Group has not adopted this proposal on its own. Please vote yes for simple majority vote, Proposal 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. For reasons stated in the proxy statement, the board has considered this proposal and recommends a vote against. This concludes the review of the matters to be voted on today, and the polls are now closed. If you intend to vote today, you should do so immediately and submit your ballot to the Inspector of Elections located at the entrance. I can report that based on preliminary results from our Inspector of Elections, that sufficient votes have been cast to elect all of our director nominees, to approve the company's executive compensation plans, to ratify the selection of KPMG, to reject the shareholder proposal for a report on greenhouse gas, and to approve the shareholders' proposal for a simple majority vote. The final voting results will be certified by the Inspector of Elections and will be reported on a Form 8-K, which will be filed in connection with the matters of this meeting as soon as this meeting is complete. All items of our official business are now complete, and the annual meeting of shareholders is now adjourned. In just a moment, we'll have Matt Johnson come up on the stage, and he'll introduce this year's winners of the Markel Style Award. And that is a very, very important part of what we do every year. Our Markel Style Award winners truly represent the heart and spirit of Markel and represent the company throughout the country, around the world, in their various businesses. And we really do applaud their success. But before we do that, I would like to recognize my friend and colleague and first cousin, Tony Markel, who is retiring as a director of the Markel Group at the end of this meeting and will assume the special title of an honorary position as Chairman Emeritus of the Board. Tony joined Markel in 1964, so his pen represents 61 years of service. And he joined immediately after graduating from the University of Virginia. He eventually became president and chief operating officer of Markel in 1992, joined the board back in 1978, was vice chairman in 2009, and his continuing counsel and engagement with Markel is absolutely irreplaceable. As you all know, Tony is larger than life, and it'd be hard to overstate his impact on the company. He's not just a highly effective operator and leader, he is the heartbeat of Markel, and he has an unmatched ability to motivate and connect with people. I could fill this entire meeting with stories about Tony, and we will have much more to say about Tony in just a few minutes. But in the interest of time, let me simply say this. My working alongside Tony and Alan Kirshner to build Markel was the greatest adventure of my life. Tony, I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you for so many years. You are family in every sense of the word. We'll now play a video to introduce the Markel Style Award winners. Thank you very much.
We've long said we're here to build one of the world's great companies. But what does that mean? You could scour annual reports, case studies, and books about companies that come before, and if you did, you would probably learn things about what other organizations have done to succeed in the long term. But what's interesting is you'll find that success is not really as much about the products those companies sell. It's about the people that drive those companies and the relationships they form. It's about the spirit of the organization and the ambition that lies deep within their hearts, a commitment to try and make each day better than the last. These are the companies that succeed, and that's why if you look at what makes a great company, you'll find that a great company is more about who you are than what you do. And so the question is for us, who are we? 214 words that reinforce our commitment to success. 214 words that help us remain honest and fair in all our dealings. 214 words that we call the Markel Style.
Hello again, my friends. It is my pleasure to present to you the winners of the Markel Style Award. Now, each year we give this award to people who embody our values with their actions and not just their words. Our winners were selected from the more than 22,000 people who work for our family of companies. And this year, we have a special surprise. So I have just one question for you. Are you ready to meet the winners of the Markel Style Award? Hang on. Let me turn up my hearing aid. Are you ready to meet the winners of the Markel Style Award? There we go. All right, so we're going to start with Mandy Sykes, who leads the team that trains and develops the people of State National so that they can maintain their status as the #1 insurance fronting company in the world. And then we'll go to Maddie Livingston, who couldn't actually be here today because she and her husband are about to welcome their first baby girl. And I know Maddie well, and I can tell you that based on the ambition and character that she brings through the doors every day, that's going to be one lucky kid. Dr. David Pong has a wry sense of humor that is only equaled by his unbridled optimism. He literally starts every single day by saying, "Today is going to be the best day of my life." Amanda Ferris is beloved by customers and colleagues because she manages an exceptionally specialized book of business with a smile. JVI has been with RD Solutions for 8 years, and in that time he has transformed the technology team into a global center of excellence. Okay, I gotta do a little story, you guys know. In 1985, Todd got a call from a friend about a temp job at a company that was trying to build a dredge to clean up liquid waste. At the time, the company just had 6 farm kids working in a shop with a dirt floor in Wisconsin. There wasn't an engineer in sight, but together they built dredges that are still running today. And Ellicott eventually acquired that company, and Todd's been working there for more than 40 years, which by my measure might be the longest temp job placement in American history. So congratulations to you. Mason Bass is a true fan of music, and that's why we like to think of him just as if he were Bruce Springsteen with the E Street Band, because he's the glue that keeps his team together. Jen Blackwell. We really wanted to roast Jen because I know her so well, but we won't. We're going to be sweet today. Jen leads communications for our insurance business, and I've worked alongside her since I started the company. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter how late in the day it is, how many revisions still need to be made, or how many times the plans change. Jen shows up with patience, grace, and the best attitude. Rob Casada. How are you, sir? And I just said it wrong. You tried to tell me how to say it. It's Casada. Did I say it right that time? I have a question for you. Is anybody from South Boston, Virginia? Hey, are you really? Rob, You have to make sure, because I bet you know each other. And so here's the thing. Rob's from South Boston, and he asked me explicitly not to say that he's from South Boston, Virginia. But he did tell me that he learned the 3 R's while he was there: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And thank God for that education, because he's leveraged it to transform intercompany freight at Lansing into a true profit center. Charlotte. In 95 years of Markel's history, there's one thing that's driven our success, and that's people with deep expertise. And the strategy is pretty simple. You empower those experts to go out there and serve the customers that they know best. And Charlotte Nichols spent the last 7 years developing expertise in cyber insurance, and now she offers weekly training sessions to her team so that they can build their expertise too. Tommy Burke is the go-to project manager for the most important and complex projects that Eagle has to offer. There is no timeline too short, no project too complex, or homeowner too engaged for this man right here. Kimberly LaFortune started at Markel just over 30 years ago, and we like to say that she was about 15 years old at that time. Her first major project was to help Markel migrate from these massive old mainframe computing machines to the modern day PC. That's a project that they finished ahead of schedule and under budget. Filippo Neri set the standard for financial reporting in Markel, Germany. He also built incredible relationships with auditors and regulators, which in the insurance business is extremely important. Carlos. Carlos is responsible for the team that drives sales for everything but the top 3 customers at Costa. And he and the team turned that book of business from an afterthought into a key source of revenue, which now comprises over 15% of total sales. Jamie Rowe is never too busy to pick up the phone when her colleagues or the folks on her team call. And in just 6 years, she's made a tremendous impact on Markel. They say you can measure the effectiveness of a leader by the number of people from their team who go on to do great things. And by that measure, Kim Wright is one of the best leaders that we have, because of the sheer volume of people who've gone on from her team to assume leadership positions at Markel. I'd venture a guess that John Wood is the only guy here today who knows how to build an arena like this, and that's because one of the many jobs that he's had in his 31 years at Metromont was to actually lead the production of the arena that the Charlotte Hornets now call home. Lorenzo Whitehurst started as an intern 14 years ago in Bermuda, and in the time since, he's led strategic projects that have saved the company millions of dollars. Rufino immigrated to America from Mexico at a young age with his parents, who believed in the virtue of hard work. And he told me that the first time he read the Markel Style, it felt familiar. It felt like a conversation he'd have with his family. And that's probably why you live those values every single day. Nick Davis couldn't be here today. He's the first winner that we've had from Valor Environmental, which, if you didn't know, just joined the family last year. Nick's actually going to be retiring as CFO after 10 years with the company, and I understand he leaves some pretty big shoes to fill. Bruce Bader. Boy, the things that I heard about you, Bruce, and this is the thing. I get a lot of, questionable stories that we can't share, but for you, there's only been good stories, and that's because, when Bruce was leading the company and Halfco joined Markel Group, he told Tom that he'd be able to stick around as CEO for 3 years, and then he was going to retire. He ended up staying for 11 years, and we are incredibly grateful for it, because Bruce is one of the best leaders to ever walk through the doors of a Markel Group company. He's the first to own any mistakes. He lifts up his people to celebrate the wins, and he's as caring as any man that you'll ever meet. So thank you, Bruce, for everything. Marcin is the operation manager for Markel Food Group's factory in the Netherlands, and chances are pretty good that you've had a pizza or a pastry that's baked on one of their machines. And Marcin came all the way over from the Netherlands with his fiancée, Agnieszka, and I probably said that one wrong too. If I can't do casada, I can't do Agnieszka. But we're getting there. We are getting there, and it's your first time in America, Agnieszka, and so welcome to you and congratulations to you, good sir. Corinne embodied the winning spirit of the Markel Style when she helped the finance team modernize the systems and processes that they're going to be using for years to come. And last but not least, Linda Betancourt. So I do have to tell you a story about Linda. When she was 15 years old, she got her first job as a bagger at a grocery store. She went up and eventually worked her way up to be a cashier. And at that time, she started checking the bulletin board in the break room for corporate jobs. Every time she saw one, she would apply. And she applied and applied and applied, and they eventually gave her a job in the mailroom. She got promoted into market research, field research, and eventually landed in HR. And she ended up staying at that grocery store for 20 years. And it was right around this time that her dad's business was in financial distress. He had a few gas stations in Massachusetts. And I'm not going to look at you, Linda. I cannot look at you right now, Linda. She had a few gas stations in Massachusetts, and she knew that if her dad lost his business, he would lose his purpose in life. So Linda quit her job. She wrote a business plan. She went down to the local bank and got a loan to buy one of those gas stations. And then her dad worked in the shop, and she worked the register and pumped the gas. And so in the winter, this is a full-service station, so she's wearing like 5 sweatshirts in the winter to be able to do that. And those two worked in that gas station until they were able to pay off every single dollar of debt that that company owed, and she put her dad into a position where he was able to retire. And as she's telling me this story, I'm just thinking, how amazing is this? But I was also thinking about how hard is that? And so I asked Linda, I said, you know, that's a big change, a big sacrifice. Why'd you do it? And she didn't skip a beat. She said, my dad always took care of me, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from taking care of him. And if there's a better articulation of the Markel style and what it's all about, I don't know what it is. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And thank you to all the winners of the Markel Style Award for embodying our actions, our values with their actions and not just their words. But I told you we have a little surprise. So there's one more thing. Andrew, would you be able to come up here? I told you we had a surprise, and Andrew Crowley is going to come up here and help me out on this one.
Tough act to follow, Matt. Tony, we first met when I was 15. I'm pretty sure it was on a golf course. Can't really remember why we were out there, whether we even played golf, but I remember you. How could I not? Fast forward 15 years, and the next time I heard your name was when my dad was working for HRH. You were on the board. Long story short, HRH sold to a competitor, and the circumstances left my dad in a tough spot. He was commuting to New York, wasn't really happy. It was tough, Tony. It was the first time I'd seen my dad without a place to go. He had all the energy, no place to put it. He's my idol. It's tough to see him like that. But who stepped up? You did. You offered my dad a renewed sense of purpose, a home at Markel. I think his words were something to the tune of, Mike, you're the only person I know who can peddle stuff as well as me. Maybe you said that, maybe you didn't, but it sure sounds like you to me. Next time I saw Tony was at my grandfather's visitation. I don't even know if they knew each other, but out of respect to my parents, Tony, you came. But you weren't the Tony I know so well now. You walked in the room humble, no longer 6 foot a million, voice as deep as thunder. You were small, soft-spoken. This was your gentle side. You were just paying your respects. I'll never forget that. A little while after my dad joined Markel, I asked him if there's any way he could introduce me to Tom. I was visiting my folks in Richmond for the holidays, and Tony, you were hosting a party. Shocker. And I got invited to join. Tom was there. I had the privilege of connecting with him. A few years later, I too joined Markel. Over the past few years, every time I see you, you start and end every conversation the same way. You start with, how are Elizabeth and the kids? And you end with, All right, now, get back to work so I can keep living the lifestyle I'm accustomed to. Moral of this story is, Tony, you changed my life. But for you, that's not uncommon. I'm guessing the list of people in this room alone who could say the same is not short. What's special about you is not my story, but the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands who share a similar one. Thank you so much, Tony.
All right. What can I tell you about Steve Markel?
Actually, this is about Tony Markel.
Oh, give me a couple of minutes, please. Just kidding, Tony, just kidding.
First and foremost, he's big. He's just a huge guy, right? So big.
Huge, we'll start with that. Huge physically, he's a big guy, and huge in personality.
When he walks in a room, everyone knows he's there.
You certainly can hear him, that's for sure.
Tony is one of a kind. He has more friends, and I mean friends, than anybody I have ever met in my life.
Tony's just an incredibly strong personality. Everybody will say he's larger than life.
Tony is larger than life.
Larger than life. Bigger than life.
Bigger than life.
Bigger than life. He's larger than life.
Remarkable.
Personable. Warm-hearted. Kind human being.
Passionate. Generous.
Very charitable.
Caring.
Yeah, I'd say when I think about Tony, I think of somebody who's really soft-spoken. You know, it's kind of hard to tell he's around.
Actually, I've gone from executive vice president to vice chairman over this career that I've had, and none of the titles were as good as son.
I remember him telling the story about when he had made his dad mad. And he said his dad looked at him and said, "Tony, I don't know, but my God, if they can make penicillin out of mold, maybe we can make something out of you."
I've known Tony since he was 4.5 years old, and obviously got a lot of stories, some good, some bad. Most of them are bad, so I can't tell a lot of them.
I can tell you about some stuff he used to pull, but I better not.
As far as Tony quotes go, there's not a lot I can actually say for this video.
Yeah, but I can't talk about it. No.
Some stories you really shouldn't share on camera because he's a whole lot of fun, and he is the leader of the party when we have events for City of Hope.
Tony is a very funny individual, always ready with a joke.
His ability to connect with people is over the top.
You're laughing so hard and you're having so much fun, you don't even realize the degree of excellence to which you're being held.
The thing that stands out the most is his emphatic, unending desire to win, coupled with an equal desire to be a decent human being.
Tony is passionate. Everything he does, he gives it his all, and that's why he is so important to have on your team, leading your team, or near your team. Because what Tony gets involved in happens.
If Tony wants something done, it's going to happen. He's going to do everything within his power to make it happen.
Tony went over to London and transformed the Terra Nova operation into a great organization.
One of the parts of that process was the shot heard around the world when Tony gave a pretty admonishing speech at Lloyd's of London.
Tony decided to tell the London market exactly what he thought of the place, and the fact that it was just not getting basic stuff in his view correct.
Yeah, it did upset quite a few people, like David Shipley, who set up MAP, was really peed off about it and wrote an article in the Insider, you know, sort of opposing what Tony said. But a lot of people actually did say what he did say was true.
Tony's involvement in that Lloyd's speech, it's still, I don't know, 20 plus years later, it still echoes around the London market.
When I come into contact with people who know about our company, his name inevitably comes up. And with that, a smile on someone's face and a memory to share.
He's a warm, personable, fantastic person who's built a tremendous business and a tremendous life by helping other people.
Tony has had a remarkable professional career, but I would say I think what his greatest accomplishment is his legacy of generosity.
Tony is the most generous person I know in every way possible.
He's generous to his friends, he's generous to his colleagues, but he's generous to the community at large.
He raised over $1 billion for the City of Hope, and that's just him.
Tony makes a difference, and he has made a huge impact on Virginia and our nation.
I mean, he has this fabulous caring factor, caring ability for everyone he comes across.
Over the years, he's done, more for his family and friends and the Markel Group companies and the community than just about anybody I know.
The name Markel is on the building, but the name Tony is in people's hearts.
Tony, I hope you're proud that I kept some stories out of this video. You owe me a drink, buddy.
So as you can see from Andrew's remarks and all the remarks in that video, there's probably nobody who's done more over the last 61 years to live and reinforce the values of the Markel style than Tony. So Tony, we're going to honor you with an award we've never given before. On behalf of the more than 22,000 people who work for the company that you helped create, it is my honor to present to you the Lifetime Markel Style Award. Please come on up here, good sir. And as he does, let's give him a larger-than-life congratulations for Mr. Tony Markel.
Thank you. This is very, very humbling, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your applause, your best wishes, the comments that were made. Andrew, thank you so much for that heartfelt introduction, but I've got to clarify one thing, and I mean it very sincerely. Mike joining us was not an act of benevolence. Mike was a wonderful colleague. I knew of his strengths, and I jumped at the opportunity to not so that you could see your father revel, but so that Markel could succeed, because he added measurably to what we've accomplished. But thank you so much for those remarks, and thank all of y'all for, as I said, your best wishes and so forth. And needless to say, as my brother says, I've never met a microphone that I didn't fall in love with. So without further ado, I'm going to make a few remarks if I can. But I think I'll start in this day and age of political sensitivity and political correctness by apologizing in advance to the following people: ICE agents, illegal immigrants currently on ICE, Yeti, the abominable snowman, Yeti cup users, George Gervin, the NBA Iceman, those that drink their drinks on the rocks, marriages on the rocks, the divorced, those that want to be divorced, the separated, the deported, the exported, the imported, those trying to figure out the tariff negotiations, the free traders, those without a trade, those that want to trade places, agents for change, those changing in the wrong locker rooms, sexy people, sexist pigs, people of all 7 sexes, those that don't fit into any of those 7 categories, those that are categorically bald, the follically challenged, the differently coiffed, and last but not least, Donald Trump's hairdresser. So now that that's out of the way, first and foremost, I'd like to thank my grandfather, Sam, my uncles, Lewis, Irvin, and Stanley, and my father, Milton, for my ceremonious induction into the Lucky Sperm Club, and for persevering through a lot of adversity in the first 40 years or so of Markel's 95-year existence, leaving a wonderful legacy and a solid corporate platform for Alan, Steve, my brother Gary, and myself. As I indicated in my formal retirement announcement, my meteoric rise to the top of Markel was an unparalleled, blatant example of nepotism at its finest. I remember my father, and this is exact, Andrew, you stole one of my lines. I remember my father saying to me, he said, "Hell, son, if they can make penicillin out of moldy bread, I think we got a shot at making something out of you." I have a cartoon in my office, and have had for God knows how long, that shows an executive at a desk, and on the desk is a nameplate that says V. Schmedley, Vice President. And out the window behind him is a big corporate sign, Schmedley and Sons. And there's a little old guy with an eye shade and a pencil behind his ear standing at the front of the desk, and the executive, V. Schmedley, says, "I don't know what you're bitching about, Grumpy. We both had an equal opportunity when we came here to work for my father." And all I got to do is look at that to remind me from whence I've come. In spite of that artificial advantage, I owe a large debt of gratitude to my parents, Doris and Milton, for providing shining examples of living the golden rule and truly caring for people with love, respect, and humility. I can't overstate, switching gears for a minute, my gratitude and heartfelt thanks to Alan and Steve for respectfully partnering with me these last 55 years, making me look surprisingly good in the process. How many family-run organizations last and, let's say, as well prosper for 3 generations? Alan, Gary, Steve, and I were thrown in together for better or worse, richer or poor. And while I'm on my handing out kudos, I'd like to tip the hat to my brother who left to pursue other opportunities, but remains and still remains one of our largest shareholders and cheerleaders. But the remaining troika of Alan, Steve, and I could have been a clear disaster. And you, of all, have seen family organizations that don't survive generation to generation. But we were fortunate enough to recognize the diversity of our strengths and the fact that they truly complemented one another. Alan's creativity and social leanings and thinking out of the box, and Steve's unbelievable financial skills and his inquisitive nature, always searching for the source answers, and if I might be so bold, my people orientation. Understanding this, We parked our egos at the door and embraced a strategy based on mutual respect, dividing responsibilities, and disdaining management by committee. It created an effective three-headed managerial team, each with their own respective spheres of responsibility, that proved us in command to be far more responsive and agile. I miss Alan every day, and I can't thank Steve enough for his support and unbelievable track record of accomplishments. As you can imagine, it's taken a cast of thousands to make me look good over this last 61 years. I hope they succeeded. For as long as I can remember, when asked, what's the secret of y'all's success? And I always responded by saying, it's sort of a good news, bad news story. The good news is that Alan, Steve, and I have hired a whole lot of people that are a hell of a lot smarter than we are. I said, what's the bad news? I said, the bad news is we haven't had any trouble finding them. Seriously, I started to hand out individual recognition to all those that have propped me up over the years, but the list is too voluminous, and I'd likely omit somebody that's important, and if I listed them all, it would turn the much-awaited cocktail hour after this meeting into a nightcap. I'd be remiss, given this podium, if I didn't underscore my unabashed enthusiasm for the current leadership team, guiding, frankly, from my eyes, the most outstanding group of associates that Markel has had in its 95-year history. And Tom Gayner, Michael Heaton, Andrew Crowley, and Brian Costanzo, we have proven leaders who will continue to oversee our corporate direction and the all-important, ever-growing Markel Ventures unit. The appointment of Simon Wilson to head up worldwide insurance operations is an appropriate recognition of the need for customer-focused leadership, which Simon has adroitly displayed in his successful tenure as head of Markel International. I hope those that haven't seen the presentation that Simon made at the Markel Group breakfast in Omaha at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting last week or week before, I hope you will look at it, because his command of our insurance needs and plans to implement the change necessary are truly inspirational. Wendy Hauser's selection as President, U.S. Wholesale and Specialty is long overdue recognition of a true leader with universal respect and admiration, both internally from our associates as well as externally from our channel partners. Her new role has brought justifiable applause from all of her constituents and locks in insurance leader with Simon for many years to come. Brian Sanders' agreement to continue to indefinitely extend his retirement date will provide Simon and Wendy with valuable counsel as they take on their all-important roles and assuring continuity in the transition. Alex Martin has proven to be the consummate team player, accepting the new role of President, Programs and Solutions, which I think it sets as he transitions to this new role, he brings a completely perfect skill set to these new responsibilities. And I haven't spent much time with him, but I can't tell you how impressed I am with Andrew McMillan and his takeover of Simon's role at the very successful international operations. the modification and direction of our U.S. insurance operation to a leaner, agile, more customer-focused company is just what we needed, and my resulting enthusiasm for the future has never been higher. As co-editor of the Markel Style, actually Steve and I didn't write much of it, but we corrected 12 or 15 misspellings that Alan Kirshner had. I want to make a couple of observations. First, this was not written as something to strive for. It was a memorialization of the unique culture role pillars that our company had embraced and we desperately wanted to memorialize and maintain those values. Secondly, I think it's our single greatest asset, dramatically distinguishing us from other companies. Third, it just doesn't happen, and it's not just a lot of words strung together. It's a living, breathing document that provides the core reference for what's important to us and should guide our actions to remain true to those principles. Fourth, and this is probably the most important, it was a hell of a lot easier to sell and have embraced by our employees when we were 500 employees as opposed to the 20,000 plus that now wear the Markel pins. In addition to the pressure of our sheer growth, the more extensive use of social media, texting, emailing, and most importantly, working remotely, make the all-important necessary collaboration, communication, cooperation, and personal interchange that much more difficult. It doesn't just happen. It's got to be consciously thought of in the front of everybody's mind and applied by all associates. Therefore, I beseech each of you employees to think first of face-to-face and telephonic communication before your instincts automatically reach for an email or a text to send. Our strength in people and personal relationships, as exemplified by the Markel Style, will not be sold anywhere near as effectively through impersonal media. And although this next statement might not be as popular, I implore management to continue to assess and challenge the virtual workplace. The output of work may not be negatively impacted by remote working, although I think it's damn difficult to assume that it doesn't. But the essential cohesion, team building, and relationships that the style depends on is without a doubt a lot harder to maintain, if not impossible. I realize that genie is out of the bottle, but things do change. Before I close, there are some people that I would like to recognize. You saw Gene Childress up here on the stage. What can you say about someone who's devoted their life and commitment to one company and its leaders? Given her knowledge of our inner sanctum, Alan and I used to joke that we should think about paying her independently to keep her from writing her memoirs. Cynthia Green, who Tom justifiably recognized for this meeting, the organization to it, and all the other, candidly, all the other events that recognize our associates and our clients. Of all of the hires that I've made during my career, this was by far and away the most important. Her unwavering support, counsel, organization skills, friendship, and love dramatically elevated my performance far beyond my personal capabilities. And since my retirement from day-to-day management, her contribution as a event planner extraordinaire, recognized by Tom Gayner, has been nothing less than fantastic. As I retire, it's very, very appropriate, I think, for me to recognize my departed wife, Sue, and my daughters, Diane and Melinda. You know, growing our budding business back in the 70s and the 80s was a major time-consuming commitment, particularly in the formative years of my children. Sue had to step up as both mother and part-time replacement for an absentee father. She accepted the situation without any hesitation and damn near single-handedly raised the kids. It was tough on all three of them, but I sincerely hope that she, until her untimely departure in 2008, and Diane and Melinda felt the sacrifice that we made as a family and that they made it, the three of them made individually, worth it. I'd also have to recognize, and excited to do so, is my current wife, Betsy. An individual is blessed to find one's life's, excuse me, I'm having trouble because I'm too damn tall and this is way down here. An individual is blessed to find one's life partner in a lifetime. Find a single life partner in a lifetime, let alone two. I'm one of those truly blessed individuals to have found Betsy after Sue's death. I could go on and on about her attributes and what a wonderful person she is, but let me just encapsulate it. She's got everything but taste in men. I have been designated Chairman Emeritus, and that's going to look really good in my obit. But I've been assured by Tom and others that Chairman Emerituses get invited to board meetings, although they do not have a vote, and are able to listen and, as I told the board yesterday, opine. So they have not gotten totally rid of me yet. It's been a hell of a ride. I can't tell you how much fun it's been, highs to lows and whatever, but the one thing I can tell you is the individual people that I've met, the shareholders, the employees, the clients, it's all added up to an absolute wonderful career for which I am eternally grateful. And in closing, I will leave you with one thought. No matter how much wealth you accumulate, no matter how many accolades you get or awards you receive, the size of your funeral is still going to depend on the weather. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage Brian Costanzo, Simon Wilson, Andrew Crowley, Michael Heaton, and Tom Gayner.
me speak on behalf of my partners who come up here at this particular point. We have a very, 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 very firm rule at Markel, and that is never follow Tony. So it just can't be done. Those of you who are here in the room today, you're witnessing history, and I hope you have some sense of that you will carry with you. You don't even really need to say the full name, Tony Markel. Saying Tony by itself gets the job done. It's one name that conveys the point, and everybody knows who you're talking about. It's like Cher or Bono or Tiger or Pele or Sting. So Tony, thank you. Your spirit will live on for generations. So as we round third base here, I want to introduce my friends and colleagues. About 3 weeks ago, we had the privilege of making a presentation to more than about 2,000 investors out in Omaha. In that presentation, we expressed our commitment to you, our shareholders. We described the design of your company and what it means to be the best home for businesses. We talked about what it takes to relentlessly compound your capital over long periods of time. We described our structure and our culture, and we shared the long-term financial results achieved across the array of our businesses that make up the company. Then we answered questions for about an hour. Well, obviously, we've covered a lot of stuff here today and a lot of additional items, so we don't have 2 hours to redo that, but we did try to distill the presentation down just to a very few minutes. So we're going to share that video with you now, and then immediately following that, we look forward to answering your questions. So with that, please start up the video.
Home for businesses designed to relentlessly compound shareholder capital across decades. That's what we're here to do. The holding company plays 4 roles. We call them culture, capital, leaders, and essentials. And what about that triangle at the top? Simply put, the triangle at the top is a home for these businesses. A home with very intentional design and architecture. It's designed to grow and grow and grow. Here's what those numbers look like. So 2019, $615 million. 2020, $784 million. Then $992 million, $1.2 billion, $1.5 billion, and finally, $1.7 billion. You know, we're not perfect, but we feel pretty good about that trend.
With high-quality businesses, diverse earning streams, financial strength, minimal friction, and plenty of room to run, our structure enables us to consistently generate earnings, to productively redeploy them, and to keep going.
And what I wanted to do was level set across the whole group about what we are, what we do, how we win, but also acknowledge the fact that we haven't performed to the level that I would expect over the last 3 or 4 years. Back in 2006 to 2008, the proportion of our controllable expenses that were being allocated from the center was 17%. Last year, it was 46. This is what I believe. You get the right leaders and you empower them to run those businesses. You do that 60 times, and that diamond is going to get bigger, and it's going to get better, and I think we can do that across the world in many, many areas.
The point today, and the story we're telling, and the description of the Markel Group is not a new idea. It's how this company was built. Empowerment is such an important element of the Markel Group story. It's the fuel that we will use to relentlessly compound your capital.
I have absolutely no interest in what average people are doing in this marketplace. The only place we want to be is at the very top of the tree.
Including the #1 U.S. grower of ornamental plants in Costa Farms, the #1 U.S. fronting carrier in State National, one of the largest building products distributors in the United States in Lansing Building Products, and an Inc. 5000 award winner 15 times over in CapTech.
What you just heard, you heard three voices, but one ethos.
We, the people in this room, we are creators. The people in this room, we are builders. Together with you, not just beside us, with us, we are building something that will grow and endure and be of great value.
For our system, the Markel Group, to work as you heard it outlined today, for it to continue empowering our people, all in the service of relentlessly compounding your capital, we need partners. Partners who share our time horizon and values. So thank you for being our thoughtful, engaged partners forever and right now. Tyler, we'll start with you then.
Great, thanks, Tom. There was a lot of interest from investors about AI and technology, both agentic and generative, and in particular with regards to the insurance business. I'll take this one from Raman Venkatraman. How much does Markel spend on technology? What is Markel's strategy on managing its technology requirements in-house versus outsourcing? And how is Markel leveraging AI in its business?
Well, thank you very much. I'll turn to Simon in just a second. I don't have a hard number on what our technology spend is. Brian, I don't know if you have that number.
Not directly, but...
Okay, yeah. We don't know the number, but let's just say it's substantial. It's a fundamental component of what it means to be in business. And in fact, a number of years ago, probably 20 years ago, I asked people to almost stop using that term, spending on technology, because I would call it spending on business. Business. It's not, technology is not a thing in and of itself, it's the business that we're in. Perhaps Simon, if you could talk a little bit about some of the stories you were sharing with me yesterday, the role AI is beginning to take.
Yeah, I think it's a massive subject for us, and I think the last couple of years I was finding our feet as to what AI is going to be about in insurance. And I'd say there's kind of two main streams that we're seeing investment in AI and where I can see it making a difference to the business. The first is really a general term in improving process. So one of the things that we're doing around the world, this is a business that's doing over $10 billion of premium. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of policies that are coming in. And one of the things that you don't want to be doing is just data entering all of those kind of policy bits of information and getting them on the system. So a process improvement that we're seeing, and a big one, we're seeing this there's a company called Mia that we're working with quite significantly, which is visual recognition software that takes the policies that are coming in and translating those kind of slips that we're seeing into our core operating systems. And that's true in London, it's true in the US, it's true in Europe, and it's true in Asia. So ingesting that kind of data and getting it onto the systems quickly and accurately is really, really important to us. So we're spending a decent amount of time, effort, and money to improve those kind of generic processes that we see. And I think that type of technology is important. I think that's going to be table stakes, to be honest. I think everybody will be doing that and doing that fairly well. If you don't do that, goodness knows, you're back in the sort of Quill Inc. and kind of Fred Flintstone arena. That's going to be the table stakes in the next few years. What is going to make a difference, and this is important with the way that we run our insurance business, is in those expert teams, there are specific types of technology, and in particular investments that we're making in AI, that can make us way, way more productive and intelligent in the way that we're able to underwrite business. And one example from last week, I was with our professional risk team in London, and a particular area of that is in what we call W&I insurance. So this is on an M&A transaction. The representations that are being made by a seller, they can be insured to ensure that anything that comes as a result of a misrepresentation is insured by partners such as Markel. Now, the way you underwrite that is by looking at a data room. So all of these legal documents that are in there, financial documents that are in there, there can be hundreds and hundreds of documents that feature in these data rooms. And the question for the underwriter is there something in that data room that makes me feel uneasy? Or am I happy that the information that's being provided means that I can put a price on the risk and we can underwrite it? Now, you can imagine how long it would take an individual underwriter, the typically kind of legal skills that you would need and accountancy skills, to go through a data room like that. That is days of work to get to a position where we can make a decision. And the second point, which is interesting, is we probably win 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of the deals that we quote. So if it's taking us 3, 4, 5 days to get a quote out and to be comfortable with it, that means we're going to probably be working for a month just to get one piece of business through the door per underwriter that's working for us. That's a huge amount of manpower that's going in to it. And the potential that we'll make a mistake in that is relatively high just because of the amount of documentation that's in there. So the quality is a difficult thing as well. What you tend to do is go for the much larger risks because it's worth your time to go through all of that documentation to put a price on because of the way in which the quote bind ratio is actually working out. The AI which we are working on today goes through that data room and we're able to interrogate it. So it reads everything in the data room ready to be interrogated by our people in less than a minute. And it's there ready to be interrogated with the questions that we know to be of most importance when you're underwriting W&I risks. It's almost available immediately. The productivity difference is enormous. And the secondary benefit is the most profitable business in M&A transaction insurance is actually the small M&A transactions, which we haven't been able to get to properly before. So this AI technology, which we're the first in the world to be using, will transform the amount of small to medium-sized risk that we're able to underwrite and the quality which we're able to determine that underwriting decision upon. Now think about it. That's just one area of 140 different products that we're selling. And the challenge to our Markel Insurance Associates is to think, what is our equivalent AI solution in marine underwriting, in renewable energy underwriting, in the underwriting of professional indemnity and other areas? It's a huge, huge opportunity, but there is a difference in each of those areas for AI, and that's where our expert strategy comes into play. So I think we're just at the precipice of this, but if you get it right and you can get ahead of the market, the amount of productivity increase that we're seeing is phenomenal. So I think it's going to be a game changer, but we have to do it at that expertise level. It's not going to be one big generic solution to everything we do in Markel Insurance.
Great. Thank you, Simon, and I might thank you for the house lights. I appreciate that.
There are people out there.
Yeah, there are people out there. So nice to see you all. In addition to what Simon mentioned, the working with vendors is incredibly important. We're not going to invent all of this inside the house of Markel. We have a spectacular array of vendors that we work with, and they'll bring us the skills that we need. And we need to be very, again, humble and modest and be fast followers in this world to adapt. We're also fortunate within the Markel Ventures family, we have CapTech, which has a substantial AI consulting practice, and they are indeed helping us and working with us. And in addition to Simon's story, and there's a lot of these, I heard somebody in the property business, property department within Markel, talking about it used to take a week to get a particular quote out. Now they get it out in 15 minutes. So this is definitely underway. And of course, the Markel Ventures companies are doing this as well. I don't know if we have anybody. Okay, yep, got somebody. Thank you.
Hi, Tom. My name is Joey Opekin. Hi, Tom. Yeah.
Hey, Joey.
I'm based out of Richmond. I've been a shareholder since 2019. This question has been on my mind for a while and may not seem as intelligent as some of my past ones, but Tom, you and Susan have been very successful professionally while having success personally raising children. I just had my first child a few months ago. My question for you all is, what advice would you give somebody in their 20s like me who is pursuing professional success but also really wants to be a good and supportive husband and a strong father figure for his kids? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joey. That's awfully kind of you to ask that particular question. It's deeply humbling. You heard Tony's comments about the balancing and the trade-offs and the sacrifices that need to be made. I'm blessed that my wife Susan has been a spectacular partner of mine, and coming up, I think next Tuesday, I hope I get the date right, it's 44 years of marriage. And I think our children are here with us today as well. So, the honest answer, and I think earlier during the forums there was some comments, and maybe Simon, you were the one who talked about it, being naive or / stupid. Maybe it was Hochi, I can't remember. I think it was Hochi who said that. So we were respectively 19 and 20 when we got married, so we fully qualify under naive and stupid. But we were in love, and we stayed committed to one another. And if you stay committed to one another with unconditional love, it'll work out. So I'm confident it'll work out. Thank you for the question. Zone 2. Thank you.
Hi, Tom. Matt Miller from Towson, Maryland. And my question, I've been a shareholder. I'm a Shiny Penny shareholder, brand new. My question is, in targeting AI investments, how do you determine which ones are real versus which are just hype? And are you targeting any non-insurance AI investments?
Thank you for the question. It's hugely important. And the era that we're in right now, to some degree, to me, has a little bit of evocative nature to what we had in the late 90s when the internet, .com 1.0 came around, and life-changing technologies and things that really changed the world were indeed underway. AI is one of those things. So when any investment that we look at, I think of, is AI something that makes this better? Is it make it worse? Or does it have sort of a neutral effect? So at anything we look at, I think of one of those three things, and I'm not sure how to pick out the winners, but I work very, very hard to make sure we're not looking at something that would be damaged by the change in technology and a lot of things. The competitive advantage that AI will bring, it will bring that to most of your competitors as well. So you're just going to have to adopt it, accept it. It's the new pace and technology of business, but as long as you are a fast follower, as long as you're humble, as long as you're willing to adapt, you can keep up. And that's normally the path through major technological changes. Thank you. Tyler?
Thanks, Tom. We got a handful of questions just on the Markel style and culture. I'll combine two of those. One from Charlene Klossy and the other from Prasen Kongsilp. Markel has always emphasized its unique culture and long-term mindset. As you continue to grow and acquire businesses, how do you ensure that the culture scales with expansion? And then just please touch on culture as it relates to some of the recent turnover in insurance, as well as any succession across the insurance and succession planning across the insurance and non-insurance businesses.
Thank you. A couple points about that. So one, and I'll invite my partners to speak as well if they feel led. Listen to what Andrew said when he introduced Tony. If that's not culture, I don't know what is, and it's his genuine life story. And those stories have happened over and over and over and over again within Markel. So while it's mathematically true that it's harder the larger you grow, communicating that and having that sense of identity can be tighter, there's also the effect that the larger you grow and the more you've done it, the more laps around the track you've had at doing it. So there's a flywheel effect, and people come to know that this is what the company is all about, and they want to be part of it. So I think our culture is reinforced in that sense. And pause for a minute, in case.
I might add a point there if I can. Matt Johnson, when he talks, he gets up on the stage here and does such a phenomenal job every year, and we take time on that because it's immensely important. He likes to say 214 words, is that right? 214 words of the Markel style. If you put those 214 words on a piece of paper in front of you and start crossing out the ones that don't matter, I don't think you'll cross any out. And this hit me in a big way, and this, by the way, Simon, pertains to you and the work that you're doing specifically. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, we had a new teammate sitting in the room with us, and he said something that shocked us all a little bit who had been there for a while. He said, hey, I know the culture stuff here is really important. I'm not saying it's not important, but we also need to compete and have good financial results and deliver good products to our customers also. And that hit me really hard, and I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? Have you read the 214 words? And what he was saying is, I'm not listening to the words on the piece of paper, I'm listening and observing the actions in front of me. And I think some of what he was saying is, when you talk about culture, sometimes it leans a little heavily on the side of certain words on the piece of paper and might be a little bit forgetful of other words on the piece of paper. The beauty of this game that we get to play, that we all love, that Tony and Steve and Alan set up for us, is that you get to go out and win and compete, But you have to be a decent human being while you do it. And you can't pick and choose one or the other of those. And that's what makes it so hard, but also so fun. And by the way, I don't think you can win that game in the short term. So you look at what Simon's doing inside the insurance business and the changes that Tyler alluded to. What he's doing is living all 214 words of the Markel style, which include elements of human decency, but also human elements of competition, delivering good returns to you, our shareholders. And I think they're doing a tremendous job of that. It's absolutely 100% through and through Markel style.
Thank you. And I'll add, in terms of addressing the turnover issue, there's an old saying that says life is lived forwards but learned backwards. So I acknowledge the fact that we've had some turnover in the executive ranks of the highest reaches of the company, but I am pleased with the place we've landed and where we are. And I invite you to analyze, critique, think about the team that's represented here. And fortunately, I think as time goes by, we have the right team on the field. Brian Costanza joked, he's been in the role for 15 months now, and it seems like he's been in it forever. In fact, in our memory, 15 months ago, Brian had hair. So, we're getting some veteran laps around the track. Thank you. Zone 1?
Thanks for taking my question. My name is Rith. I'm from Richmond, and I am shareholder for last 3 years. I would appreciate your comments on Markel's share repurchase strategy. Since 2017, Markel has repurchased close to 8% of its shares with a book value ranging between 1.26 and 1.7. Berkshire repurchases shares only when the stock is trading at or below 1.2 times book value. Could you please let us know what book value multiple or valuation uses trigger as buybacks? Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify the question a little bit in terms of the thresholds and the mechanisms by which we would repurchase shares, you're correct in terms of your math of what Berkshire said at one point in time. I don't know for a hard fact, but I'm pretty sure they've updated that because Buffett, in fact, in the last couple of years of the annual report, has dropped book value from the reporting right there at the front and talked about the appreciation of the shares because there's so much of the business that's not financial, that's not well measured by book value. They have to think about it a little more comprehensively. Similarly for Markel, we have a wonderful insurance business, but we've got a lot of wonderful ventures businesses as well, which are not well described by book value. So the way we think about things is the way Buffett originally taught us, as he learned it from Ben Graham, is the value of a business, the value of a share today is the net present value of all of the cash flows that you expect to come in from between now and forever. So what we're doing when we're evaluating whether to repurchase shares or not is to think about how we would value the company as business people, just like we make acquisitions and buy businesses. And we're thinking if we get a good deal on that and that is attractively valued in terms of the stream of future cash flows that we're getting, that's how we make the decision. And it's not based on a book value multiple, but a value multiple of the net present value of the cash flows. Thank you. Zone 2.
Hi, my name is William Vaughn. I'm a wealth advisor from Newark, New Jersey. You all have built an incredible organization with the insurance company and also the operating businesses and public equity portfolio that really creates a flywheel similar to Berkshire Hathaway, where the essentially free float can be used to purchase businesses and the profits can go back into insurance opportunities. So my question for you all is, what kinds of returns on equity through the cycle do you think that the overall group can generate when the business is operating on all cylinders? And is that something that you target in terms of returns on equity for the overall group? Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question. And the first thing I want to do is define a word. So you used the word free float. I can assure you, Simon leads a team of about 5,500 people, and the float comes from the blood, sweat, and tears of those 5,500 people working to operate a business at a profitable combined ratio. So Technically, it might be correct math to call it free. In terms of human effort that goes into making that, it ain't free. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, so I wanted to clarify that. That is a tremendous advantage. We did study Berkshire and see that model in action, and it inspired many of our actions. And what has been the case at Markel since the IPO in 1986 is that the compound annual growth rate in the share price, which is over time the best proxy that describes what our return on equity is. I mean, it's one for one, it's an identity, has been about 15%. We've talked a lot about some of the challenges we've had in the last couple of years. We've talked about why we needed to make some changes in the insurance leadership organization. And I think we've gotten back on top of our game and are in the process of doing so. And if you look at the last 5-year kind of measurement, it's back up in the mid-teens. If we continue to compound in the mid-teens indefinitely, that will be one of the most spectacular financial performances anybody will ever see. And I don't want to set that out as our bar, but I do think if we compound at double-digit rates in the competitive world in which we live, and we do that in an enduring fashion, those are returns that I'm going to be very happy with, and we tie ourselves to. We don't allocate capital unless we think we can make those kinds of returns.
In a pretty tax-efficient way.
Yes, Mike adds it in a tax-efficient way. Tyler.
John Marin was curious, what non-investment book has made the biggest impact on your investment philosophy? I assume this is for you, Tom, but maybe for anyone. Why? What lessons did it teach you that you bring to investing in portfolio management at Markel?
Well, I'm going to broaden this one out a little bit, and I don't think it's a successful meeting unless my wife Susan says, "I can't believe you said that." So I'm going to start the chapter of the Susan saying, "I can't believe you said that." And again, this morning in some of the forums, there was somebody who talked about vulnerability and being vulnerable. So let me open that can of worms as we speak right now. So Tyler was correct. He solicited a list of books, and I'm reading is my thing. So I had 10 books, and I didn't pay much attention. He said, "Well, that's too many," and he distilled it because there were some other people who had books and whatnot. So he picked 2, and the 2 books he had from my 10 were one, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now I'm going to assert to you, and I'm going to drink a couple of beers out there, that I don't have an alcohol problem. I have an alcohol pleasant. I have an alcohol solution, not an alcohol problem. But in our Sunday school class several months ago, just going around the horn of different topics, the teacher was talking about the success of Alcoholics Anonymous as an organization. So I'm really trying to help people, which they do. Their percentage success ratio is higher than many. So they're very effective at what they do. And if you join that organization, you get this book called The Big Book. Well, and there's the 12 steps in there. And of the 12 steps, here are the 2 that almost might relate to Joey's first question as well. 2 of those 12 steps is you have to admit and recognize you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. None of us can accomplish what we need to accomplish in life on our own. We need partners, we need friends, we need outside help. And what Alcoholics Anonymous would suggest is that should be a higher power. And they're very ecumenical about how you want to label that higher power, but you need something, a force bigger than yourself to make it in this world. And the second principle of the 12 that really resonated with me is that if you find yourself weakening or wobbling or having a challenge, the best way to deal with that and help yourself is to help somebody else. And I just can't think of anything that doesn't resonate more with what we try to do at Markel than those kind of principles. So that's vulnerability statement number 1, which Susan is groaning about, my big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Book number 2 that I'll mention is a book called Hold Me Tight by a marriage counselor named Sue Johnson. And so I don't have an alcohol problem, I don't have a marriage problem, but those were the books I was reading. Maybe you should read a little bit to make sure you don't have those kinds of problems. But the central tenet of that book was about empathy. And it's about, if you think about a marriage relationship, you're dealing with somebody else in the most intimate relationship you'll have. Well, extend that a bit to the relationship you have in general. And I think the skill of being empathetic, no matter what happens in technology, to be able to imagine and understand and appreciate the way somebody else sees something and incorporate that into your own thinking before you turn and respond. I think that skill is timeless, and I think it's one that's underappreciated, underpracticed, and you don't have to be a genius. You don't need to be Einstein. You don't need to have 180 points of IQ in order to give a damn and care. So this was a book that helped you do that. Zone one. And I know people are, we've been here a while. We'll do one more lap around the horn, and then we will go out to the reception. So 1, 2, and then Tyler. Thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name is Denny Pouland. I'm an investor from Pittsburgh. Thank you for hosting. At the Omaha Brunch, Simon Wilson mentioned that there was a need to give the experts in the field complete transparency and control of running the businesses they're responsible for. And he also mentioned that he thought that Markel may have gotten away over the last 5 to 10 years from giving those experts the tools they need to do that. I was wondering if Simon could please elaborate, give some examples on what those tools are and how transparency and control will be enhanced for the experts out there working in the field.
Thank you. I'm wondering how Simon thinks about that too. So Simon?
Thanks for that, Danny. Okay, it's pretty simple, okay? Well, many of you will be business people running businesses, etc. The biggest single tool that you have in order to govern performance of your organization, if you're a business leader, is a P&L. A very clear P&L where revenue, costs, and therefore profitability are there in front of your eyes. And when you pull on a lever and a decision that you make within your organization, it will have an impact on that profit and loss account. The way that we'd become set up over time, and it was all perfectly good decisions at the time, but if you layer them on top of each other, we become very complex as an organization, and we got a big matrix structure going on where people were being held responsible for business areas, but they did not have control over all the elements of the P&L that sat in front of them, and they were a little bit confused about, am I able to make that decision, or do I have to go to a committee that sits above me? So the clarity of the performance of your business was nowhere near as clear as I felt it needed to be. So rule number one is we're going to put business leaders on top of clear defined P&Ls and give those leaders the opportunity to influence all elements of those P&Ls. The second thing that had gotten as a result of this kind of amalgamation of the various businesses is the central organization, so IT, finance, HR, you name it, those types of sort of operational areas, they would be at the center of the organization, and those costs would be attributed or allocated down to the various business units. And there was a point in the video there where in times gone by, that was a pretty low number. It was 17% of all your costs were controlled by someone else. Last year, it was pretty much half of all your costs were being controlled by someone else. And you can't have that. If you're going to be responsible for a business, you need to have those costs as low as possible. So what are we doing? We are clearly defining business areas within insurance. We'll put a leader on top of each of one of those business areas. And the way we're thinking about it at the moment, I think we've got 7 P&Ls in Markel International. We've got Global Re, and another, I think it's 9 in total that we're going to be naming within the US area. So there's about 16 or 17 P&Ls, 16 or 17 business leaders, and we will absolutely be transparent in terms of what they are. And the second thing we're doing is federating what were allocated costs held at the center down into those business units. And when those business units receive those costs and the individuals that are responsible for them, they'll say, is that something that I really need and require as part of my business, or is it something that I don't, and I'd rather go and spend my money on something else? So they're the tools that I'm talking about, and I know that sounds radically simple, and it is, but it's amazing how quickly this kind of corporate environment can get on top of simplicity, and what I'm trying to do is just strip it back and go back to those basic tenets of putting high-quality leaders on top of P&Ls and driving results through that over a period of time.
Thank you. Zone 2.
Hey, Tom. Larry Pikowski, Good Haven Capital. Congratulations on today's events and the recent strong results. For those of us that keep a close eye on the property and casualty insurance industry and are always trying to get a gauge on pricing trends, and are we in a hard insurance market, a soft insurance market, is the market, which direction? But for those of us that are long-term Markel owners and thinking about the future growth of intrinsic value, should we really worry about that much, whether we're in a hard or soft insurance market in those trends when there are multiple engines at our disposal?
Well, thank you for the question, Larry. At this point, I've been at Markel for 35 years, and I think I would say that we've been in a soft market condition for 38 out of those 35 years. It just always feels like a soft market, with very minor exceptions. I'm exaggerating to make a point. We have gone through the past 2 or 3 years where conditions in general, from the pandemic, the super reaction to that, created a hard insurance market. Right after 9/11, right after Rita, Wilma, Katrina, right after Hurricane Andrew, which Hochi referred to in 1992. So there have been these brief episodes where incoming calls come in, people are desperate for insurance cover, but the vast majority of times, no, we need to be out there working, soliciting business, recruiting clients, and competing against other people who are willing to do it for probably pretty much the same price as what we are. And I would just draw you back to that notion that since the IPO in 1986, we've managed to navigate through all of those soft insurance markets and compound your capital at mid-teen rates. So the ultimate hopeful answer is that's just the reality which we have no control over, but we've done a pretty good job of navigating that along the way. Simon.
I'm British, right? And the British people are absolutely obsessed with the weather. So it's like, you go, if it's raining outside, it's going to be a bad day, and if it's sunny outside, it's going to be a good day. Well, we all know that's not true. You can have some of your best days on a rainy day and some of your worst days on a sunny day. So I think this whole thing about is it hard or is it soft, people can just get obsessed with it. And as Tom rightly says, the hard markets are so narrow. If that's the only time you could operate, we wouldn't be here today doing what we're doing. We presented this morning on our international business, and the same is true actually over here in the US. The market share that we have of the commercial insurance markets is minuscule. It's kind of like in the areas that we play, it's 2% at best, and more often than not, we're under 1%. So I think with ingenuity, focus, expertise, great customer service, we can easily take a 1% market share to a 2% market share, and that takes a $10 billion company to a $20 billion company pretty quickly. So there is opportunity everywhere if you're prepared to look for it. In terms of pricing, yeah, sometimes it's a bit better than other times, but if you're in niche markets, you can sometimes dictate that price or a fair price. And that's what we're looking to do, is to carve out niches that are not reliant so much on those wider market conditions, because we can't control those. We can control what we sell and our understanding of how to price it properly.
And picking up on Simon's response there, where you talk about the niche markets and having a little bit more control over your destiny, what that really means is knowing what the right price technically is. And if the market price is higher than that, we'll write it. And if the market price is lower than that, walk away. That's the real thing that matters. So, last question. I know everybody is on the edge of their seats. Tyler, no pressure, my friend, but go ahead. You got the last question.
I'm going to go back to the insurance business, because at this point in time, going through the pre-submitted questions, that's where a lot of the investor focus was. We just hit on the growth side of the P&L. Adriana Belli asked, what is Markel doing to lower the expense ratio, which is higher than its peers?
Well, I agree with her assertion that our expense ratio is a challenge, and so we are working on it, but let me turn it to Simon, who's overseeing that.
I've been doing the job now for 45 days, so it's feeling good already. You know, people are interested in what we're doing, but it's going well so far. The expense ratio overall is probably a little bit elevated versus competitors, no doubt. The two components of that expense ratio are our variable expenses, so that's what we pay our brokers, and our controllable expenses, which are kind of our administrative expenses, which we have pretty much complete control over what we spend and where we spend that stuff. The variable expense ratio is a back and forth game, depending on what line of business you're in, depending where you are in the market cycle. So that's just a cost of doing business with brokers, and we work on that. But we can control the controllable expenses, our administrative expenses, and that's where we're focused. I think that the best way to focus quality and quantity of expense is by going back down to these 16 business units with leaders on top of them who are in control of their P&L, because they will make high-quality decisions as to what we spend our money on. A slightly elevated expense ratio, if the expenses that we are spending are quality, is okay. That might be investment in AI. It might be new technology. It might be some of the best people in the entire marketplace. The problem is when you're spending too much money on things that are not quality. And that's the decision-making that great leaders can make when they're putting on top of a P&L where they're really, really focused in terms of what they're spending and how they're spending it. I do believe there is an opportunity to take a reasonably significant amount of cost out of the business over time, both as a ratio, because I think we can grow with less people, but I think there are some, sort of elements of what we're doing at the moment which are probably surplus to requirements. So we're going to be working through that over the course of the next 6 months. As we step into 2026, it is a massive focus of mine and of Brian's as we work alongside colleagues from around the organization. So yeah, I will say it's a big focus. I do think we've got the right setup now with our new structure to be able to make high quality decisions, and that will lead to a reduction in that expense ratio over time. Brian.
Thank you. On day 45 of being in the job, I think we have a sense of the clear marching orders that are involved, and over the course of the next remainder of the year and next year, we'll see some improvement on that front. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank you for celebrating another positive year for the Markel Group. I want to thank you for your partnership in relentlessly compounding the capital. I want to thank you for joining in this celebration of Tony Markel, and I think he would join me in welcoming you for a drink outside at this point. So thank you. And